I call to order this September 18th, 2023 meeting of the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board. This is a special meeting being hosted for workshop sessions. As part of bringing the meeting to order, we have to go through some special motions. We don't have to do an audibility vote because we do not have any members speak remotely. However, we do need to make a motion on how long any public can speak. We don't do that because we're doing workshop sessions. Skip that motion too, which is awesome. All right. The only other thing I would bring up is that the meeting is being recorded. That's also for the benefit of the presenters as well as for our records. So keep that in mind. So we can actually start our meeting with the reading of the statement of purpose and intent of the historic overlay districts, which Mr. Tillman has offered to read. Sir.
Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public for the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures or processes that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, or processes, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Zellman. All right, a few general housekeeping items. So the agenda is set by vote, so we'll vote on the agenda in just a minute. For applicants presenting today, I think everyone here is the new applicant presenting, so
one repeat.
One repeat presentation. So for repeat presentation, I'd ask that you keep your presentation 3 minutes if you can, to try to focus on what was changed since the presentation, then we'll get right into workshop session. The new applicants, 8 minutes is what we usually ask for your presentation for the maximum there. Also, as you can see, we've been having some sound issues, so speak up just to be on the safe side, just to make sure everyone can hear you. And those are the housekeeping items. If there are questions on that, I would look for an approval of the agenda as presented. Motion on the floor by Ms. Murray.
Second.
Second by Ms. Aubrey. All right, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, the agenda is approved. We don't have any introductions or recognitions of guests as far as I can tell, right, Daniel?
Nope.
Still have a special announcement on the agenda, and so I'm going to just repeat it again, even though we did last time, since now technically this will be Ms. Aubrey's last ARB meeting. And we can in person thank her for her time and service to the ARB, including giving her
Thank you.
trowel, recognizing her time of service.
And flowers.
Yes, flowers. Thank you so much, Michelle, and everyone really appreciates it. We're glad you could be here in person for this special session. We'll say it's special because of you, not because of having so many things on our agenda. All right. Thank you for that. No, we have no consent calendar items, no action items. We move right to items workshop. The first one on our agenda is ARB 23 ROV 01WS, the Rickard Water Wheel at Roby's Mill. This is in the Roby's Mill Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to install a decorative wood water wheel on the Roby's Mill to restore the original appearance of the mill. Alan Rickard represents the application. Sir, floor is yours.
So I'm Alan Rickard, and my wife is shown. Well, the square in the middle of the larger area being Roby's Mill Historic Overlay District. The smaller rectangle there is the section that my wife Connie and I own.
Can we move the podium closer
Yeah.
this direction?
That's not on. It's not on. Oh, so I'll speak up. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And we bought the place in 1982. As far as the mill goes, it goes back to about 1790. And I could give you a long history, but in 8 minutes, not much. So we've had it for 40 years, and we built a house back on the hill on the section that's hard to see there, and moved out of the house and up to a new house way up on the hill. But the mill is the little red spot you see there, and that's right on the Piney Branch, which is a creek that actually never runs dry. 40 years it never has, which is the wisdom of the original builders. They knew the mill could work all year round. But water wheels rot and they go away. And I believe A. LeGrand Stafford was the last one who had a water wheel working there. That was probably in the 1940s. And the place, we've kept it up, put new roofs on and various things for the mill, and there's always something to do for it. But it always just looked like an old barn. And okay, so we had millwrights approach us at various times over the 40 years. Always impractical to do anything because of the high cost and the inability of a mill to actually generate income ever since the mid-1800s, after the Civil War, basically. And so what can you do about this old barn? Well, my thought, and we had a millwright approach us just before COVID and wanting to do all kinds of things because they know how. And so we said, look, the only real value in terms of how it appears is to put a wheel on it and make it look like a mill. And so that is our first thing. There's always something more to be done in there, and you could invest $2 million in full-time labor for at least 2 men to get it going, and it still would be obsolete. So we're going to put a water wheel on there with your permission, and we already have that worked out. Next slide, please. This shows you it's a little hard to see from here, but basically the outer rim of the wheel, as it would be. And because building a dam up the Piney Branch is impractical for a lot of reasons, we're planning to the water wheel will turn if we choose to let it turn. And we plan to use just a pipe and a copper overflow, and so the wheel will turn. And that's how we do it. The red around that perimeter is a safety fence. It won't be following that exact outline, but that's the best I could do on Adobe. Next slide. So if you're looking right over that stone pier that would hold one end of the wheel, looking down to the shaft that's still kind of there, that whiteboard is 8 feet. The planned water wheel is 7 feet. And that's half of it. So 14-foot diameter, 7-foot radius. Next slide. This is the grading plan. And the ground at the base there, where the water, underneath the water wheel, about a foot lower than the water wheel is planned to be, is the natural silt and level. It's been like that for 40 years. Okay, it's not going to get any deeper or any shallower unless somebody dumps something in there like rock. It has filled in a little bit as you approach the exit path of the water down to the Piney Branch, and that can be easily dug out, probably 2 or 3 hours with a backhoe, and then because water would be flowing out of it again, it would probably maintain that level, or it could be hand kept if need be. So the black line shows the water flow. Next slide. This is a drawing of the water wheel that we plan to construct, and Hanson Builders is planning to do it. It was his idea, his drawing, and we said, that looks good. Now, there's all kinds of detail to this, and I'm not sure the whole drawing is original to Hans Builders, but and you can't see all the detail there, but there's lots of finer points to this, and you can blow that up and read some of the text there. So the millwright is Levi Hansen, and he is a middle-aged fellow, lots of vigor, and he has a more elderly millwright that works with him, as well as a construction company. And so they can build this wheel, probably build it, you can go to the next slide, probably build it this winter with your permission, and then mount it late winter or early spring, and just make sure it's going. Next slide. This shows you, the red line shows you about the profile if you're looking straight up that water flow to how the profile of the wheel on the mill there. Next slide. This is half of it. You can see the black line being the shaft or the steel rod, and then the bearing is right there at the ends of that shaft, and then the wider wheel is wood mounted around there, and the wheel is built into it. Again, it shows you the 8 feet to the silt line and or soil line, and the width is 36 inches, and the radius is 7 feet. And it shows you how that fits between the mill and that stone structure, which has always held the water wheel on the east side. Next slide. This is an example of wheels Levi Hansen has built, and the one lower is probably more the size this one would be. The upper one is maybe much wider. Next slide. Because one of the reasons we haven't done this for 40 years is because it's would be considered legally an attractive nuisance. Somebody's going to get hurt. And being an attorney, I don't like that idea. But I've decided with this opportunity, let's just say the Lord sent me a good millwright, maybe at the right time, and here we go. So private property, no trespassing sign. This is not open to the public. We're not going to charge admission and have people come in. But we always have curious passersby who are aware of the property, either from historical records, or maybe they're attending some Civil War festival or thing in there, and it's on all the maps. And of course, we're going to post the danger do not enter on that fence. Next slide. That's the fence. We want it to be attractive, but you can see there are certain, this is a lot like the fence you would put a safety fence around. This would be certain, code prescribes how tall and how close to the ground the fence has to go, and this is would fall within that category. So it would look a bit historical, but also meet those safety requirements. Next slide. And so this is Levi Hansen's quote, work estimate, and I'm not going to read the fine print here, but it basically says what I've already told you. Next slide. He's going to charge $72,000 to build and mount this wheel. And it's a pretty expensive decoration. And it will need some maintenance, especially if you want to turn it on and off. But it's just been kind of one of my dreams. What do I do with this mill? And there's always been a reason not to, and now I say there's no reason not to do at least this. Of course, there's a lot of things we need to do, various things inside and around the mill that that we do and keep doing. But this one will actually make a difference from a visual point of view to the historic nature of the site. That's my presentation. I'm open to questions.
Okay. So I look to board members with questions, comments, thoughts. Since the workshop session can be more informal, with the hope that the next session that you come to, that that information will inform an application.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you going to divert water from Creek? Or, because I don't see any water coming to that channel right now.
No, what's going to happen, there'll be a pipe going into the creek right on the other side of that stone pillar, and a pump basically drawing it up and overshot right up the side of the, probably on a little bit on the
There's
back.
one of the drawings that had a black line
Yeah.
showing the pipe that would take the water to. basically-
Yeah, the very first there, and now one more. Back, one more. There you go. In white print, there's a pipe. We'd probably bury that pipe until it gets to a point where it's got to go up, and it'll drop right on top of the mill. I mean, top of the water wheel. And it would, like all pumps, would have an on and off switch. Okay, and so who turns it on? Who turns it off? We don't want the wheel just to be freewheeling when it's off. So there'll have to be a stop. And so does that answer your question? It would be a short pipe just coming down to the Piney Branch, right where that black line goes down there.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, first of all, I applaud you. I applaud you for doing this. I think that's awesome. And a couple just informative questions is, you plan to have a wheel operate, right? Or is it always going to stay still? I assume you're going to have
The wheel will turn with water flowing over it.
Okay, I mean, like once a week, or you think every day? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it's kind of like putting out the flag. If you remember to do it, it's out there.
Well, there's no light on it. Keep going all night. But
No, I probably wouldn't want to do that.
Okay.
If you leave the flag out all night, that kind of thing.
You got it. And then inside the mill, is it attached to anything? Or it's just a freewheeling?
It'll just be freewheeling. It'll be have bearings on both sides of that rod, and it'll just turn like a bicycle wheel.
Okay, and that fence will be it'll attach to the house.
One side of the mill, yep,
And then all the way around.
all the way around, and attach the other side of the mill. Now, the Piney Branch does get angry once in a while, and it conceivably could wash part of that fence away. Of course, I'd have to reconstruct it if that occurred, but it's the chance you take near any piece of water.
Sure thing. And then, out of curiosity, can you show the one picture that shows the faraway view, please?
Yeah, that one?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so having the fence so close, just my thoughts here, would you have the fence maybe farther away from the bars, or is it like real tight to the bars? It's like you have a pad, or something, some kind of field area that maybe it goes along the roadway and attaches.
I also was wondering this too, because it's up against the branch. I mean, if they're going to access it, then they would have to go through the branch to reach it. Normally, that fence stop at a water source. But I didn't know, so I almost pictured the fence just going to both edges of the branch.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if somebody goes through the water, they're already passing into a hazardous condition.
Or if you're concerned about people vandalizing it, maybe it does traverse parallel to the branch, but it gives more space around the building. Right now, it's not like really tight to the building. It feels like you're trying to hold back as opposed to, hey, it's, create the setting that it wants to be in. You do all the paint and everything to do the wheel. Why not?
I really follow you, and if there is no definite perimeter to this fence, I could surround the entire building with the fence. Then you need a gate to get into the mill, and that's not such a bad idea because off hours.
You get a couple
somebody
horses in
could-
there.
Pardon?
Get a couple horses in there to paddock. I mean, I just, this is very close to my house. It's probably 15
Yeah,
minutes. I live in,
you probably driven
Yeah.
past it.
yeah, and I said, when did I turn that thing down? No, I just, but, no, I'm going to say that, I live in Fairfax Station.
Good for you.
123 in Henderson. So it's,
It's right down there. You're,
yeah.
the Raiders would have come down and got the train down there back in the day.
Now, I know, well, there's actually, just FYI, there's a mill ruins on our neighborhood property where English Hills, and there's the old mill sons, everything in the foundation of the mill along Sandy Run.
Yeah.
That dates back to the early 1700s in our neighborhood. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of little mills like this around.
It's, you know, it's
surviving.
Hence the amount of roads we have around here.
Well, this is talking about roads.
all the mill roads.
And I will digress, I'm sorry to take time, but I get excited about this, but you go through the woods in our neighborhood, there's the old road bed that goes to the mill, you can see it, it's depressed, and it's about 12 feet wide, it's overgrown and everything, but it's pretty cool. Sorry.
No.
I agree with Mr. Plumpy, though. I think it does. I would rather the fence be bigger around it
As big as you can get
to
it.
give it more space so you're not hiding
Yes.
what you're going to put there. I also thought about the same thing you just mentioned, that, sometimes, recently with the storm we have, sometimes these branches do get angry, and it seemed like it might be more work suddenly coming in if you're going to have to keep potentially repairing and replacing a fence that's not close to it if you get washout and damage to it. So were there solutions that would allow you more fenced space as long as you're still meeting the safety and, requirements that I completely understand you want to make sure you meet so that you're not getting into a situation for someone that it's a safety hazard properly warn somebody. So that would be my initial reaction from the fence. Joe, if you had anything else, I didn't want to steamroll past you, but I have a few other questions.
That's it. Thank you so much.
That was my initial thought on the fence. I think when you do come back for application, though, for the actual application, I would want something that actually showed the fence on a plan a little bit more detailed, so you have something a little bit more concrete to look at for the actual application. When it comes to the wheel itself, with the millwright you were working with, how did they come to the number of buckets? Did they look at anything historic? Did they look at any of the photos of the mill? What did they?
We do have photos of the mill. The original, well, there have been a number of water wheels. Typically a wood water wheel might go 20, 25, 30 years if you're lucky. And over the period of 160, they probably had half a dozen wheels built over that period of time. And who knows what the original ones. The one that's on the cover of the dissertation, I believe, is from Major Roby, who built a dam way upstream around 1929, just at the beginning of the Depression, and made a go of the place for at least 12 years. And I don't know, so that's the wheel you probably see on the cover of that dissertation. And it was not a 14-foot, it was closer to 18 feet, which is a huge wheel. Well, it would rot out pretty quick because it would be always on the ground, just the way nature operates.
Well, and the nice thing you have is obviously you're constrained obviously by the spacing already. So there's only so many types of circles that can fit there. You're limited by, and the construction of a mill wheel is fairly standardized process. There isn't a lot of variation.
On a wood wheel,
Yeah, and there isn't a lot there. I was just curious what kind of line of thinking went to that particular drawing, because then I think we had some of the drawing you showed.
Go back to, go forward, up forward, 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. That is the spacing of the buckets, and it is actually in the proper angles. So if the water is overshooting, you can see it gets caught in the buckets and it turns the wheel. And this has 8 spokes on each side. The Roby's wheel had, I believe, 12 spokes on each side.
That was also significantly taller.
It was significantly larger. And I'm not I don't know all the engineering, but it just makes sense because this is what fits. And it'll look good and probably easy to maintain.
And I think and I'm the architectural historian.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's why I'm asking a bunch of.
Go ahead. I'll answer
questions
them the
about
best I
it.
can.
I think the other one, so I agree. So many wheels have probably changed out throughout time throughout the operation that picking a particular period is going to be some flexibility there. The other part of it was I wanted to talk about the stone wall that is going to rest upon the other side. It looks in here in the work order, are they going to do some repair to that, or stabilization?
That stone wall on both sides is actually quite strong.
Okay.
Now, as to whether they could point up some of the masonry, probably could point some of it up. I think they probably would, but on both the wall, the stone wall inside the mill, and also on the other side is actually very strong.
Because I think my worry is more about what techniques they're going to use to make sure whatever they do doesn't potentially result in any damage to what is a historic material. It says in here, I see new concrete, masonry work, stacked stone, veneer appropriate to the era. I want to believe that means that they're going to do it right, but if it's not done right, then you have different joinery, different things going on there. We have a cold snap, and suddenly we have old masonry, new masonry, and we have damaged material, and then suddenly a new weight source, suddenly something fails. So maybe a little bit more clarity from your contractor on what they're actually going to use. Are they going to give you a mock-up to compare to, like, to make sure they're matching it? Because that's where it could really start to stand out, is what they're going to do to make sure this is a stable structure of any minor concrete or masonry work. I don't even like the term concrete now because
I don't think a lot's going to have to be done to what's already there. The old bull shaft is, you can still see splinters of it sticking out. That's going to have to be sawed off about 6 inches, just so you can get to the wall, the stone wall that will hold the bearing on the west side. And if you don't want that touched, we can just drill out a little bit more of a hole that's already in it and just put it in there.
It's not that I don't want something not touched. I just want to make sure I know when it's being touched, it's being, the right type of, repairs. And I think I know you as the owner of the site, you want that the same way. I just want to make sure your builder is going to do that in the way that I hope they will. Like, I know they might be able to make a perfect water wheel, but are they going to repair that? Are they going to do stone work or work around that stone?
It doesn't need much repair. It's very big. I mean, you could have a party on top of it. And there's really no loose rock in it now. I don't want to be too emphatic. I take you very seriously on this, and I'll go back and examine a few things and maybe, get Levi to write up a little bit more of how it's going to do. But basically, where that red square is on top of the stonework is wood, big blocks of wood to just get the height totally correct. And that's what it has always been in every mill, so that they get the bearings and the shaft on the right level and plumb and everything.
What would make me feel good if when you talk to them, my big thing would be, matching in kind, any type of repair. If that would be the principle I'd want to see, if they're gonna come across something while they're doing this, hey, we do need to do something, try to match in kind as best as possible. That would be, and it'd probably be a condition I would put on any motion to approve this, that any repairs to the historic material would try to follow those standards that exist, and would try to, have in-kind repairs, meaning you use the right type of mixture of lime and salt aggregate as appropriate, so that it blends well. And again, I imagine this is someone who probably is going to do that, but it's the first time this property.
Yeah, I think
Joe. I want to make sure it's treated real well.
I think he'll do that. Levi's he's done a lot of mill writing. In fact, right now he's up in the Northwest doing with Mel in Washington State. And then he's planning to have this kind of his, one of, I don't know, kind of his winter project to build the wheel. And they'll have to build it in his shop, and then he'll have to take it apart and reconstruct it on that spot.
Those are my big questions, and I agree with Mr. Plumpy about the fence. You can make the space around it a little better, because when I saw the fence location, I'm like, oh, that feels like it's just gonna choke it so much. You're not gonna get to enjoy what is a new feature because of how much the fence is. Even though it's fine looking protected fence, it's just I want to give as much space for that. For someone who's putting that much energy and money into one of our heritage resources. Those are my comments. I don't know if any other members have.
Yeah, I'd like to commend Mr. Rickard for investing in doing this. It's obviously not just for yourself, everybody else is going to benefit from it. The county's going to benefit the citizens. Thank you. My only question or thing I'd like to bring up is your water wheel is going to be made of Western red cedar according to
That is correct.
the work estimate. The fence says cedar. And then on the site, we also have a white painted fence.
Well, yeah, we have along the road, the scar that was put upon us after we moved in. Pope's Head Road was raised 10 feet, as was a bridge in front of the house. And we can give you a long history of that. And let's just say Fairfax, well, I'm not going to all the power that the highway people have. But I'm sure you've seen it in other places. It was not, and we did the best we could with it, actually. The white fence was part of it.
My point or my suggestion is that reduce the number of material differentiation. So if you're using Western red cedar, consider using Western red cedar for the fence.
Yeah.
Or absent that, perhaps a white painted fence to help tie it together.
Well,
Just something to consider.
Levi even suggested a white fence and painted white fence. I don't have a problem with that. It's a lot of the same fence, but I think this is, I bet if I pulled this room, I'd have half and half on that one.
Well, and I don't have a particular preference. I'm just trying to make sure to, or suggest to you, you may want to consider not too many different different materials competing for your attention.
Truly,
Dana.
makes sense.
Yes. Just go on with what Mr. Polinsky said there. It's, when I saw the picture, I said, gosh, let's just keep the white fence. And again, minimize the materials, but it actually isn't, atrocious looking. I think it's really ties in nice. Kept the white fence versus the wire and cedar fence.
Yeah, well, the white fence would have to have,
You'd have to have the wire.
have the wire as
Is that the
well.
wire because of?
Because, the code is on a safety fence, you got to be within 6 inches of grade.
So this is safety fence because of climbing or drowning in the stream?
It is safety fence because somebody is going to say, wow, I bet I could climb that.
Because it's an you don't want to be an attractive nuisance.
Sorry, then I'd put sticker bushes. No, I was gonna.
Whenever you're joyriding down Pope's Head, and you're like, I could climb on that water. We gotta stop
Joe's
you.
trying to make it easier.
Yeah, that's right. Those,
Hey, Joe, let's climb that one. See if we can make it go.
well, anyways, so the white fence with wire in the back may be just as good as the other.
Yeah, I'll take it back to the white.
Yeah. I think that'd be better.
I'm not trying to tell you what to do, just consider what you think is
Is
most
good.
appropriate.
Well, and it was my thought to use what Levi suggested only because the white fence tends to draw your eye to the white fence.
I got you.
And we want to draw your eye to the water wheel, so that's why the natural look is, maybe a little more.
Well, that's why I'm saying,
Part of that.
how far can you stretch out that white fence so that the water wheel is really the star And really the white fence, the fence is only doing what it has to do to stop the joke from the
True,
world.
but
crossing.
a 4-foot fence going down from that building down towards the creek and then across is going to be much lower than that wheel. You will not notice.
That's good.
All right. So coming down, and this is coming from the other direction, you won't even see it. Coming down this way, you're heading from east towards west, and all of a sudden, whoa, what's this? You know, and it just, you know, it would be kind of dramatic and interesting, and why not? And you know, so I don't think the fence is the feature. In fact, I wouldn't even spend any time talking.
Well, I think they're afraid that the fence will interfere with the view of the children.
Yeah, I know that, but it's going to be very low.
Just thinking further down the line, that the cedar materials, whether it's western cedar or not, they're going to patina, they're going to age, and it's going to disappear. It may
It's going to
actually
turn
be better
browner. Yeah,
than doing a white fence. It'll become more
it
background.
become more natural, and then the wheel, you know, stands out because it'll start out being, you know, brownish. I mean, like tan, reddish tan, and then it'll turn to brown like everything else, like the the mill itself, and it'll be that color. But you know, the dimensions and the size of it, really, you're way far back here. You're over 100 yards away, and so as you get closer, it gets more dramatic if you slow down.
And I think that does get into the question, though, that I think we do want to make sure we give you input on, because this was going to be an item for action, and I think we're talking to David, and we encouraged you to come for a workshop session, which I think.
Another one?
No, for this one right here, which I really
Thank you.
appreciate, because we wanted to have a conversation about it, because it is something affecting one of our heritage resources in the county, which, again,
You bet.
I can't, like everyone, we appreciate that. But we want to make sure when you do come, that everything is here, that meets the sufficiency for us to give you an approval. And I think for me in particular, the site, some type of plan showing, looking down for me to understand the fence.
Plan view,
The
sure.
plan view would be very helpful
Yeah.
from that perspective, because I just,
We'll do that.
looking at the picture, I get the concept, but it does feel like as proposed, it's going to surround the wheel. And for me, I think is any information that the millwright can give you on their approach, any notes or documentation they want to share on their approach for doing this, that would be very helpful, since that's just going to help solidify their expertise in this process. That's kind of what I'd be looking for.
And I definitely understand that point of view. It still remains only a safety fence, and the only hazard is the wheel.
I don't know if there are any other members, things that you would want to see folks when he comes back for application. Just trying to make sure that, okay, everyone else, I think, okay. Any other questions from you or otherwise?
No, we'll get you a better, plan view on that, and, make a call on the fence. I think we talked about it, how to get it. And then it's just a matter of doing it, getting it up there. And then whenever you drive down Poset Road, you say, oh, look at that. it's a mill.
That's where Roby's mill is.
Where do I buy the flour?
I was going to ask you, whenever it's done, please inform Daniel, so we could actually go out there for the field trip when we go to Lord Ours.
We'd love it if you came by, and we could talk about a lot of other things we can do to that mill once we make it interesting. Well, I can give you all kinds of history. In fact, if you read that dissertation, it's very interesting to read it. It's awesome, and that's still published and kept in Heritage Resources.
Was
As a
that the
brown
Fairfax
cover.
County? Mill?
Yeah, Hope Park and Hope Park Mill is what it's called.
Can you send us a link?
And actually, I think
there is a link. It's one of the very old comprehensive planning publications.
Daniel might be able to find it.
it's still in print.
I know, is it? I don't think so.
Oh, it might not be.
No, we cleaned the warehouse out. So
Well, I think I made a PDF of every page, at least relating to the mill.
I can share that. I have
And
Can you share that, Nate?
it's just a PDF, and you can read about it. I mean, this is interesting reading. When you start reading the history, when you realize
If you want to do a new release,
Abraham Lincoln pardoned the man who owned this after the Civil War.
I'll dig
I mean, it just is very rich history.
I think I speak for everyone again. We appreciate the property owner investing in a heritage resource. So we look forward to you coming back for application. Thanks.
Pleased to work for you.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's item number one. Item number two, it's ARB 23 SMC 04WS 5640 Ox Road, new single-family home in the St. Mary Church Historic Overlay District. And applicant is proposing infill construction of a two-story single-family house, Sunny Ray Hiak. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
I'm only gonna get it to pronounce it right.
Okay. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Sunny Raheja.
Okay.
Yes. So we are coming again, but we're coming with new information. I just wanted to make sure that you all understand that. So, because I think I'm going to take all the 8 minutes I can get to explain all the changes that we have.
I'm not too tough on
Oh,
it.
yeah. No, I can
We
tell.
got a light agenda tonight.
Yeah, this is we're good. So we go to the next slide. So with me today, I actually also have Robert Satchel. He's our architect. So we had come to you, just said a bit of a background in January. You gave us a lot of feedback. We took all that feedback and incorporated it into the plans here. As you'll also see in all the attachments that we provided, include all the updates from the previous meeting, and then it includes a lot more new things. This is a similar agenda that we had before, except now that we also have renderings that you all prefer to see from all 4 sides. I know January this year probably is still 10 months or 9 months ago, but it's just to refresh. So you go to the next slide, please. So again, the owner of the property, nothing in this slide has changed, so I won't bore everyone with it unless anybody has any questions on this older slides. We can discuss that. We go to the next slide, please. So the purpose here, like I mentioned, we did come to the meeting on the 12th of January. In the approval letter that you all provided, there were 2 conditions. We met both of the conditions. The first one was that we identify steps to identify and protect archaeological resources. We hired a company called Dovetail Cultural Resources. That's why it actually took a very long time to come back to you, because although I contracted with them in January, they couldn't do the work until April. And by the time I got the report back, it was June or July. And then we needed to finish some other stuff. So the report is uploaded on the website. And it concludes that this is not an archaeological site. And if you wish to read that, I think it's I forget the number of pages, but it's a good read over a weekend if you don't have anything else to read. And then the second item that you all mentioned was that, I forget who it was, that we saved trees 11 and 12. And you'll notice in the revised set that we have saved those 2 trees for your request. And the grading plan that was submitted to the county was revised, and we provided the final submitted grading plan as a submission package as well. And then we'll go through some of the other items that you commented on. There is no change on this slide from the one that we provided earlier. So I put a marker on the slides that had no change on the top right. So you go to the next slide, please. No change onto this one also. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so this is the grading plan. This is slightly revised, but this one doesn't show the tree in the next slide. So I'll go to the next slide. But this is the final and submitted grading plan. If you go to the next slide, please. So those are 11 and 12 trees that are dotted in green, and they're outside the building restriction line now, or outside the disturbed areas. Okay. You go to the next slide, please. No change on this slide. I should have put a marker on there. I apologize, in the landscaping plan from the one that we previously submitted. So you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so you all asked for renderings from each side. You also gave a lot of comments on the look and feel of the previous submission. So we took that, we looked at various, I think one of the comments somebody made was, go look at modern farmhouse opportunities and scale it back. So if I had that, I do actually have the previous design in the appendix if you all wanted to see that. But based on y'all's comments, we try to keep the same size of the house within the same footprint, but this is how the front elevation of the house or the rendering would look like. Sorry, there are still markers on the page from who created it, so I apologize for that. I can get that removed in time. So there is, I think one of the requirements was to use as minimal type of materials, which is what we did here. Also, you'll see that on the side of the house, we have created a whole porch that goes around. I think that was one of the suggestions that you all needed, so to make it a porch. So you go to the next slide, please. That's the back of the house. So there's a whole porch in the back, and it actually wraps around to the left-hand side that you'll see as well. And we're using the same stone around the retaining wall of the swimming pool that is on the house. I'll keep going unless somebody stops me. So we go to the next slide, please. That's the side from the Ox Road. So if you were going from Ox Road, this will be what you will see from the house, although it's far ways, but that's the side of the house from the Ox Road. Here, the next slide, please. That is the opposite side, which I think no one will see because there's no road on the other side. So this is what we call the brown renderings, and the next 4 slides are the same exact, but they're gray renderings. We're sort of deciding to go with the brown or the gray. I think brown is winning the votes right now, but I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware that we are looking at 2 color choices, and we provided both to you all as well. So you want to just flip through the next 4 slides slowly. I think everybody can see the gray versus the brown. So we'll keep going. And one more. And then one more. So the elevations have also changed from previously to what we submitted to match what you saw in the renderings as well. The bottom is the front, the top is the back. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry.
Oh, interesting. That's the current design?
Yes. Go to the next slide. And those are the 2 sides. The one on the right is from the Ox Road. The one on the left is on the other side. We go to the next slide, please. And those are the floor plans. So that's the first floor plan. And then we go to the next slide. That's the second floor plan. Second floor plan is still getting revised a little bit. So I think by the time we come back to you next time around, hopefully we'll address any other questions you have now and have the building plans finalized so we can hopefully get the approval from you all. Okay. Is there more? So one more thing.
One more, go ahead.
Quickly.
Yeah.
I do have samples for all of these things with, if you wanted to see them. But I have samples for everything that you see on the slides, from the stone to only sample I don't have is stucco, but I have the paint swatch. If you wanted to see that, I've got shingles, the windows, the garage door. Okay.
We need an applicant from Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh.
Many you spotted.
Yeah.
No, it was
I want him off.
You mind describing this?
Dana, do you have prior drawings?
They're included in this system. You can go forward to those.
So I'll put them here.
Okay.
Is that okay, or do you want me to pass them around?
No,
You wanted to.
So this is the previous stuff.
Okay, that's what I wanted to see, because I couldn't find it in my file.
So I included all the previous slides in the appendix.
Okay,
Okay.
So we can cycle through
Yeah.
whatever you want.
so that was for reference, that was the prior submission.
Right. So it looks a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I was talking about. I think it was significantly
Oh, yeah, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Design, actually, I feel like, as you said, it has a language to it. I felt like that was a problem that I had. Wasn't done.
Right. Okay, so I'll put it here and we can pass them around and I'll talk through stuff that we shared earlier.
Okay.
The sample of the fence. The fence, the fence sample.
I don't have the fence sample, but I do have this.
What is it, metal, wood, or?
No, this is, what do they call this?
Trucks.
Tracks.
A composite.
So we haven't chosen the color yet.
Is it, can you explain what the style of the fence is? You don't have a picture of it.
I don't have a picture of that. I apologize. I will bring it to you next time. Okay, but it'll be post and I mean, you
So
guys
it's a
find
real
it, so
fence?
don't talk to it.
I'm not aware of the fence.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you did everything.
Yeah, we didn't put the fence up there, I apologize.
Okay,
But
but it's
it's,
a 3-board fence. So
yeah, with like 3 boards with posts,
Oh,
right?
okay, every 10 feet. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay.
exactly. Whatever the code is, I think we're gonna follow the simplistic approach, to be honest.
Yeah, because you
We're
have.
not gonna go so fancy on the fence because it's a big area.
Yeah, well, because you have a pole in the back.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I have to figure out how.
so I did bring some of these that are written. We had both brown and gray here because we hadn't chosen, but I think we're gonna go with the brown. So this panel that you'll see is the garage, okay, and that's the garage sample. Okay, the big piece is the garage. And the garage, can you go to the other
The current.
house line, the front, please, if you don't mind? And then I can walk. Yeah, right there. So the garage actually doesn't face up. So there's garage on this side and there's garage on this side. So it's 4 car garages and there are 4 single doors. And most, sorry, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, since you got that up there architecturally, and you're the architect, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, with the garage, it's much simpler on this one as opposed to the line draw, the columns and the arched entranceway.
It could
What's the
be-
reason?
It could, no, it could be.
Like that?
Modified to whatever you think
I
is
just-
appropriate, okay?
Yeah, it looks more appropriate. This is my 2 cents.
So we're gonna go
Right,
looks like
you got others to
with
chime in.
Right.
a line
Okay.
and
Right.
panel.
I
think
introduced
you just have
arches.
another line in there.
That's okay about the house. Yeah.
Yeah, to kind of break up
Break
the
up the
monotony.
Okay,
But if it's too much, then hey.
okay. I think it's good on the house portion, maybe the garage,
That'll be so.
maybe just need a little more work. That's fine in your line.
And we stick with the gray.
Again, that's my opinion.
Make it straight.
Straight turn, yeah.
All right, we have,
Perhaps. Sorry.
so we can keep it all, so they all give you all the time.
Because on the line drawing, like the,
You go look at it, the light drawing.
You go to the line, right? Yeah.
There, there.
right,
One more.
the front surround,
Oh, go
at the front door,
No.
I like the
Back.
line drawing versus the elevate
Versus
versus
the perspective.
3D.
No, because when I do this, okay, I go back to what is the vernacular language of the architecture?
Yeah.
So I put it there because I grew up in Georgia. I was born in the island, but my dad kicked me out of the, I ended up in Georgia, growing up in Georgia and in Florida. I understand that when you have a house this big, it needs to speak of the culture. You can't just put something so modern out of the, out of Mars somewhere. It needs to be, it needs to
So you're
belong.
going to change that line drawing is incorrect from, because your 3D and your line drawing are different at the,
I didn't do the perspective.
Yeah, he didn't do the perspective.
you didn't do the,
No,
okay.
the rendering.
Because I prefer this.
I prefer this. I do not like the
3D.
the perspective.
Okay, yeah, because the roof is too tall and it's cutting off the views of the glass.
Because the perspective guy is not an architect.
Okay, gotcha, I understand.
They don't understand
Yep.
the scale of things. Oh, this is going to be this big.
Okay,
Right.
so take the 3D with a grain of salt. This is Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I
I
want to
think
get to.
Mr. Sastro's architecture work is really good. I don't think the perspective captured it. I think what the line drawing here should be what gets built.
Well, the perspective.
Yeah.
Nobody bothered asking me.
Yeah, it's
So that's okay. I think for
It's
this,
it's also a service that is ubiquitous and commoditized and
but for the sake
But
of
it
people
helps.
who are going to come for the application,
It helps.
don't, while it's great that you brought a render,
'Cause it
we
does
want
help.
what's going to get built. So the line drawing is what we're going to look at. And we've gotten in situations where we've had mixed renderings and line drawings come in the final package
Right.
and they conflict. And we then have to go, we can't approve this because the entire package has conflicting materials and it creates a weird situation.
But it also, it's very difficult for somebody to create the exact image of what's in the line drawing. Because, we try our best, but I don't think you're
Well, and
going
I
to get a
can't-
10 out of 10 on
Yeah.
any rendering.
And I can't speak for the whole board,
From the line.
but we don't necessarily need a rendering.
Okay.
That's not what someone's going to build your building based on. They're going to use.
That's not
yeah.
required for permit.
you got to use this.
Exactly.
And by the way, I'm the builder,
Okay, there you go.
so I'm the GC.
I just want to,
Go ahead.
I retract my statement, looking at the rendering now, and Steve's whispering in my ear. I think we can go with the garage like
Yeah,
this.
this looks better.
So that's why I wanted the original drawing.
Good job.
The original set brought up because the original one had too much of various styles going on.
Right.
This one is
Much better.
more
Yeah.
cohesive.
Yes.
I do think so looking at the line run, I still got one or two little tweaks in my opinion. I do think, I do think the cornice, particularly over the garage, I think there's a lot of powerful cornices. And I worry I don't think that works though with the entrance necessarily, which feels very soft. It's got a much more delicate entrance, but then you've got this big cornice going right over the top of the garage. I just feel like that's going to be really, I wish you could be even a little bit more scaled back in those areas. That's my personal, now, I'm not an architect.
Are you talking about the porte cochere, the opening you
Yes.
drive into? Okay, because the garages are the two
Yeah, so I'm talking about the porch
structures left and right of the opening.
I'm not talking about the two side.
Are you talking the cornices underneath the doors? Like how the trim work? Underneath the door?
Okay, I'll go there. You can tell us.
Occupy that room above there. He needs.
Are you talking about this?
And that's a problem.
No,
Oh, the lines above it.
the lines above it.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
That's something.
yeah, but it doesn't match on the house. The house is simpler. I think that's what Mr. Daniel's saying, but the other three dormers are on the base.
Well, that's the roof. I mean, it's gonna end somewhere.
No, but it looks like you have more lines, horizontal lines in your cornice.
We should go back.
Absolutely.
This is not cornice. No. That's not cornice.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Those are just dash lines to show what's going on. Yeah, match that. Like,
Oh, this got busy because I was showing the floor behind it.
Okay, so this is someone who's an architectural historian talking about what the architect's probably like, oh, it's going to be that.
No, this is not Roman Colosseum.
No problem. These are people who don't have taste about solar panels on a particular site, so that's a whole other issue.
This comes, the way the soffit is built here is exactly the way the soffit is built
Then
here.
that helps me understand that.
Yeah.
Because I looked at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, how many layers is going on there? And it looks like a.
Sorry, I should have.
That's okay. That helps. I will say, yeah, no rendering when you come back though, particularly if it's gonna look.
I'm not bringing any renderings anymore.
It just, we've got some bad PTSD from renderings and plans not aligning. with each other.
This is delicate.
Yes,
When
that's
you
what I
approach it, it's human scale. But I don't know what to do with this because this is humongous. I need to bring it down, but how? You back up the car, you hit right into it.
Right.
That's the
I mean,
reason.
I look to our architects on that answer. That's not a.
That's the reason why I try to bring it down a little bit because if it's all straight, it looks like
Yeah.
a shopping center. When I have curve here, then I had to introduce curve here so it balances out, and also a little bit of curve here. This roundel here is from a little bit of French style, but I also repeat that, yes, a little bit. So when you look at it up close, the components are speaking the same language.
Yes.
Any other comments?
I guess.
No, I need to send this down. I'm sorry. We got talking.
Yeah. So I think,
Jeff, you comment on the colors?
yeah, I think we're gonna go with that.
Well, I was gonna say, I like the brown better than
We like gray.
gray.
We're the gray wing over here.
Yeah, we're the gray wing. What?
I mean,
I
we're not a board that conference.
Yes, I don't think that's ours to.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, I think they're both fine. They both,
Yeah.
that was the other problem with the prior design. It felt like there was so many materials going on.
Yeah.
I think,
What you're showing here feels more cohesive.
I think some of these pages here look kind of peachy, oh, too much peach. Pink.
Okay.
So this is, you got the action versus, oh, sorry, warmer, make it warm. Okay, but gosh, I don't know the differences. That's all good.
Yes.
I got a question.
Yes.
What do you think we should do with this? Leave it alone?
Yeah.
It's back. I mean, it's in our place now, but it's set back from the house.
Are you just worried about him hitting their money into it when they back out of the garage? Then they got a side garage, you're already running into that problem anyway. That's a life problem.
I had to introduce these columns to reduce the width of it, to make it smaller. So do we go with this, or do you want to go straight, or what?
I like that, but it's going to work for our person who's actually going to see this.
It works?
It works.
Yeah.
It works. It works.
It works.
Do you bless me?
It doesn't, it definitely doesn't, yeah, it definitely doesn't bother us from the prior. That was the big thing. And again, Daniel, is there any way you pull up the elevation drawing on the prior design?
From
Yeah, it's in there.
previous?
Yeah,
It's in there.
that.
It's in, if you keep going. Keep going. I'm there.
Well, not, yeah.
No, go up, more, back, one more.
Yeah, see that just felt so much busier. It was the big turret. It was the turret, the castle entrance that really, the entrance, just in my opinion, to change the entranceway of the house.
I didn't design this.
No, he didn't.
Owner design.
He didn't.
That's what I design.
I mean, I'm just saying,
It was given to me, so I draw it.
for the sake of our conversation though, I think that's why I like this other elevation. I'm comparing them side by side. That's where it softens the side. Elisa's right though. We're seeing the portico share right now as it is, but it's not going to be as dramatic. Right. So I'm okay with the columns you're proposing too. I don't mind that on the portico share.
Because without, it'd just be like from sea to shining sea. Like,
Well, that's not unheard of in new construction in our county. So.
Yeah, right. So just a couple of more notes
Yeah.
for you guys. So this is the garage. It won't be white. It'll probably be like dark brown to match the color. And then this is the window. And it'll also be dark brown to match the color scheme. Yeah, it was gray. It would
And there's going to be single light.
Yeah.
Big basement.
Huh?
Basement.
What's that?
There will be casement window.
No.
Casement window.
Yeah. When we just we haven't looked at the that detail on that yet.
There's going to be a light pattern. It's gonna be light. Okay.
Bars like this, no?
We can look at other designs if we wanted to, whatever suits. With the one that you see in the rendering, can you go back to the original rendering? Or not the original, the new one? So like that.
Yeah, it's more right. Which I don't mind because you start adding lights and 6/6s or something, and it starts to really try to be making what it isn't.
No, I think it's going to be much simpler like this.
It's a contemporary country house.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's Magnolia.
Magnolia.
Right. We can call that Magnolia. I'm not an architect.
No, but Magnolia is the on the Magnolia channel, the husband and wife.
Oh, Chip and
Joanne.
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 By all means, okay.
If you went with the gray, you could use the black frames, which are so hot right now. I mean,
Right.
everybody's putting those black.
Right. Yeah, if we did the,
Then that'd be the gray.
it would be the gray.
Yeah.
But if we went with the brown, then there's a darker brown shade as well.
Oh,
As
there
you see in the
is?
garage, yeah.
Oh,
It's, but it's this one right here.
and you would get that on the all the windows as well.
This is for the garage, but we're told that we can get that color also on the windows.
And it is. As an architect, aluminum is like the brand, because wood, I grew up with double hung with weights, they all fall apart. And as you see this is just like so up there.
Yeah, and absolutely, don't bring these renderings back when you come back. Yeah.
Super cute.
I mean, I think at this stage they're good because they help us envision it.
Yeah.
But I think we're all past this knowing that these renderings, they give us the basic form of the house, but all the architectural vocabulary, Mr. Sastro's got that on his drawings.
Yes.
And you could look at those line drawings and read it, that it is much better than this rendering. But I mean, it's good for the form and the general layout.
Yeah,
But
when you see
Don't
this,
include it.
right, when you see this, it
Super
looks homey. It's from your heart. It looks homey. When you see that, it's not. So I gotta do something to it.
But it definitely lets us know you guys have looked at the massing, which I think when we saw it last time, it really felt like you were building a castle. So I think we're definitely coming back with a full set of drawings. I think you could just reference the materials. You don't have to haul them in necessarily. Again,
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what do you guys want?
as long as you have a sheet that identifies them, we don't, I think a sheet identifying the materials you're going to use, that would be sufficient for the application. You brought them in for a workshop, we've seen them, the drawings that we're going to need, the actual building permit, everything. I think you've got those materials there ready for us. I don't know if there's anything else.
Chris, what's the level of construction detail that needs to be on the drawings so it's not run into the issue we have?
What do you think, Mr. Kalinsky?
No, it's, what's the requirement for
Our charter allows extreme latitude. It says they are being may require, and then it gives a lengthy list.
and measures, but there's no reason not to require the same level that we were asking. Like,
Yes, I would agree with that.
If that's what you think is appropriate, yes, that's what we should ask.
well, yeah, and
I was just gonna say, I think we have the elevations, which are great, having the landscaping plan, the archaeological study, having a list of materials, like Mr. Daniel said, I think will be important if we're not gonna have them all here with us, just so that we have an idea, not only of the concept, but when we go to final approval, we wanna know what's gonna be. Yeah.
but we were telling the applicant on Thursday night, he had a complete set of permit-ready drawings.
Yeah.
Which he
Well, we got the lengthy discussion.
was shy at that.
So
So,
what do we need for you all to approve this when we come next time? Because our goal is to come back on the next month.
I think what Mr. Kalinsky is conveying instead of what we feel like construction drawings.
I think we need to be consistent with what we've told other applicants. That's permit-ready drawings.
There you go.
Right. And I hate to throw that on you, say you've got to do it really fast.
Well, it is what it is, such as like. Now, we've heard what the building permit people consider permit-ready drawings might be an avenue. Depending on, I digress, but yeah, we want to know what you're going to build in a set of drawings that communicate that and materials that are going to be used.
So would you rather me bring all this material back?
As Mr. Zelman said, a list of them, the material, color,
Just bring pictures.
And
Yeah,
there's
just
still
make
this,
pictures
I
of your
think, piece of
presentation.
paper in the record that says we're going to be using.
Yeah, we're gonna include that.
And I think at this point, I think I think there's only one of us is missing
Yeah.
now, and I think he can trust us with materials.
And we can also Google set material and find out if actually look it up. We really necessarily want to look up the exact color. We didn't feel like your submission, reflected well, but I think that we just wanted to make sure we have all that information from.
I think one thing, if you could also bring a lighting plan, put the lights on, show where your lights are, make sure your lighting.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. We've got the site plan and everything approved previously, so that's.
yeah, site plan, we've already taken your comments and
So
we
Chip,
should.
maybe what's on the structure itself.
Something was approved. So.
Yes, that's what we were talking about, the trees, and I saved your trees.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think the letter approved the
Yeah.
site, it was log grading plan. And we took your comments and we submitted to the county for approval along with the letter.
I have a question. The site and the architectural, do you want them to be combined or not?
I think we could just have to reference the site, but it doesn't have to be in the same thing. When you do your permit, you're gonna have your site plans already approved. That's done.
That's right.
So your architectural drawings will be separate.
That might be a part of your package, so here is.
Yeah, just bring the site
previously
plan along
approved
next
set.
So I submitted that already.
Yeah, just bring along the
Today's,
reference.
for
Yeah.
today's meeting?
Just make sure it's in the package, so it all comes in.
Oh.
Yeah, so just a reference.
Okay.
Good.
Just
Yeah,
hand it.
yeah. Really good, guys. Yeah, I'm glad you listened.
Tried.
I'm glad you got him.
Yes, we are glad about that.
There you go. Keep on doing some more houses for him.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Good job, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, our last one
Your
is
son?
Yes.
ARB 23 OAK 01WS 4716 Wakefield Chapel Road, solar panel installation.
Sorry, we'll get out of here. Just 1 second.
Again, who's the? Yeah.
Dovetail.
Dovetail.
Yeah.
That's what.
It's
Network with.
proposing solar panels on the roof of their residence, which is not an HOD. Property owner is the property owned Oak Hill that has an easement on it that requires change of the angle of the park authority and when deemed appropriate by the park authority by the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board, so you can imagine why the applicants did. Solar panels are considered as an option to reduce the energy consumed by a large historic building, along with previous repairs to the portico. Get some solar tax credits. I do not know who is presenting our application. It's not on here, so
Oh,
if you
I'm
can introduce
sorry.
yourself for the record.
Yes, I'm Laura Braceland, and I appreciate you all letting me sneak in here. Tammy's meant to call me in person and tell me I could get in tonight, so I do appreciate that. So my husband and I have owned this house for about 6 years, and as time has gone on, we've done improvements to it to make it both more livable and also to keep the structural integrity up. One of the major things that we've done recently is I don't know if you want to show the front elevation. Yeah, there. I'm sorry, Mike. Didn't realize how crooked the lawn was when I took the picture. But if you can see, there's a portico, this kind of double-story roof on the front. The roof of that had been leaking for some time because of the way that the metal roof behind it was put on. Apparently, there's a, I don't know if you all know about flat roofs with the waterproof kind of rubber sheeting. It was tucked under, but apparently wasn't tucked under far enough. It needs to go at least 3 feet. So we had to have there was a lot of wood rot in that portico. And when we had it taken off and had all the repairs done, they also had to unfortunately take off the perfectly good metal roof that went all the way up to the front. So it was quite a lot of work done. And since my husband and I have been talking about doing solar panels as one option for lowering our energy costs and the overall expense of the house, we thought this would be a good time to jump on that since we could also roll those repairs into the tax credits from what I've heard. So that's what we're hoping to do. We've gotten some estimates from 3 different solar groups, Ipsen Solar, Solar Energy World, and Pure Solar. The first 2 used their traditional panels. The third one uses a silicone panel, which we thought would be promising because you could put it on a flat roof basically with glue. Unfortunately, they're A lot of the groups around here don't work with them because they're not as nearly as efficient as the traditional panels. But basically, they told us our energy bills average around 2,000 a year. They told us in general we could bring it to under 200, and net savings of about 85,000 over 30 years after putting in the after paying it off. So we are trying to. This is also a good image of. I took this from where I was standing, because when you come up to the house, we, as a historic easement, part of our easement is that we have an open house every year. This one is September 30th, if y'all would like to come. But it, as you come up through these historic boxwoods, which are what saved the property for being developed, this is what you see. And I have worked hard to try to find a way to avoid putting panels right on that main roof there. And kind of, I feel like that would be kind of jarring for a place that's has significant historic look. But at the same time, we do need to put enough so that it's worthwhile to do the work so that we get an actual return on that. So in this picture, I was showing that if we put panels on the flat part of the portico as well as on the lower half of that front roof, you wouldn't be able to see them from the ground. To the left of that, you can see there's also a little bit of a regular steep roof and then a flatter roof. We would actually have to go ahead and put some on there as well as our garage, so they wouldn't be completely hidden. And what I'm trying to find out is what the county will accept as far as adding an obvious,
So the county said, come see us.
Yes. So they said to talk to you, and I got some feedback from the Parks and Rec, from Dave Gupta, who's a historical architect there. Basically, the guidelines that I've seen for the national park buildings that had also incorporated solar, a lot of the tips are try to do them where you can't see them. Unfortunately, the southern part of the house is where all the sun is. If you want to go back one, yeah, so, or actually one more. No, sorry, I didn't realize. So that one, whoops, sorry, go back to that one. So this is one of the ideas where they weren't putting any panels at all on that front elevation, but you can see that there are ones that were beyond the garage roof and on that other smaller sort of wing there that would be visible. I had tried to talk to some people, some had suggested doing them on the back part of the house that we could get some energy, but it doesn't sound like it would be worthwhile as far as our return for the cost of being on there. So I'm still working with two of these first groups to see what I can maximize as far as our energy input without affecting the look of the house as little as possible.
So what advice did so it was the county's advice, try and make it as least visible as possible? Or
yeah, they had some kind of general ideas. I mean, it was sort of, I want to say vague. It was sort of more recommendations that I had seen on NPS sites. It's basically, if you can get a meta site, do so, which we're hoping to do with the flat part of the roof and the bottom part of that main building, or the main wing. And
well, I think the portico is obviously one of the perfect places.
yes,
yeah. That's a win-win automatically.
The only thing is we have to make sure it doesn't penetrate the.
Yes.
So
you want to make sure you're
working with two different groups to make sure they're not going to, end up having that. That was why I was drawn to the solar flare, which is they have those curving panels that are like this thick, and you can stick them on the top of your RV. But yeah, like I say, none of the groups close by considered them efficient enough. We could have them. I even texted my husband about just having an electrician put them in, and then seeing if any of the groups will integrate them. I do realize it's debatable how much energy you can use on that. They say that you would actually make it up because each of their panels, I guess a traditional panel, if there's shade on one part of the panel, the whole panel is out. whereas the solar flare ones, the silicone bendable ones, have smaller panels within the main panel so that you actually, if there's shadow on it, you still get most of the panel. So that's something I'm trying to determine. That was told to me by the people selling the panel, so I don't know how.
I don't know a lot about Oak Hill. What was the original roof? Has it always been the style of roof?
Yeah, so,
No, it's, I can't remember the history of it. It was, in I think in the 20s, it was colonial revival.
yeah,
A famous colonial revival architect, whose name I can't recall.
the one who did Mount Vernon, apparently, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a more vernacular.
They got the colonial revival.
Yeah, he got everything looking like Mount Vernon, so.
And they have detailing from the Willard Hotel.
Yes, there was some salvage from Willard. If you can show the front elevation again, that round door there.
It's not an architecturally pure.
No.
Well, that's I think. So what I was trying to get at is, if it's not, then I don't know. If John's not here, so he can't beat me up. I'm not as hard on things like solar because one, it's a temporary thing that's placed on. It's a historic building trying to continue to remain relevant as opposed to being torn down and replaced with something that consumes far more energy than the building's embodied energy. So I think the fact that you're already minimizing the amount of panels because you have that portico, I personally just want is, as discrete a profile as possible where you're going to put it. That seems the most efficient route. I think the bigger thing I'd be worried about is how they're going to connect to the tower, and they're going to do it in a way that's, garish, and it's going to be done the way that's off to the side, because we've seen some of these other ones, so they put down the connection in the worst place possible, and it's just, and then you have this just disgusting bit of conduit coming down property, and I think that's part of the charm of the building.
Okay.
You don't want that, but that's my take on it. I don't know. Zelman's on board with me. Kay, Elise?
My memory is that the part to the left is the oldest part of the house.
The part on the right.
What part of the
That was where
I thought
as
it
you
was like a cabin.
the left part was, so the part that you're looking at here, the front, was built, they think approximately 1792. And then, but it was a very plain front. It was just like a little, I think there are pictures from the 30s that has a very ugly flat, like shed porch on the front. I think that was added later. But that part was made, the part to the left there, which has the kind of a bow window, was added afterward as as the dining room. It might have been the original part of the original kitchen. And then there were parts added in the back. So if you look at the overhead view, the part that I was talking about with the garage, that was built, I think, in the 40s. And then it was connected, the two were connected in the 70s. So it's definitely evolved.
There's another reason I'm inclined to not be connected by solar panels, just because I hosted a historical society long before you.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So I wandered around it extensively. It's been a long time, but I have a sense of it. Because it's sort of a hodgepodge of building, I'm less sure about the addition. And I think pretty much flat on the other part, right? So that's the only thing that kind of freaked me out, is I could see them coming to the East Street Commission and saying, they're putting solar panels on Oak Hill.
Okay, so you think that, what you're saying is you think that the new part, the garage part
definitely.
is fine.
And in the middle part.
The middle part, okay. Yeah, so as long as we keep that main.
Mr. Lumpy?
Sure, we were discussing two things here. And it looks like the back roof is very shallow, right? The slope is.
It looks like it from here. It's actually the same pitch.
I mean,
As the,
beyond the dormers, right? It's a really slow, real low pitch of the roof.
from the north side.
Yeah.
It's the same. Somebody else, when one of the solar people were looking at it, thought it was just like a third expense, but it's the same kind of 40. I don't know what is the usual this much, but
But
it, there is a flat where there's a little white area there. That's another part of the flat. Okay.
Oh, Joe's got them twice in one meeting.
This area here, that's pretty shallow slope, yes. I mean, this looks.
Oh, I see. Yes, there's a regular one in that. Yes, there is a, there was an addition on that. It is a little bit shallower.
I think they were saying that the gain off that side though was not.
But it's almost flat. I'm just saying, is it's not tilted towards the north. It's like.
It would be going up. Yeah, I have a question out to the, both the groups about how efficient any panels would be.
I mean, that agency they're put on there because I think it's pretty important to preserve the front view of the house.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it would be great if we could just put them all in the back, but,
the garage, I mean, but yes, it's the north side, so I know you're gonna get zero efficiency on the garage and maybe the little breezeway connecting, but I think the main structure of the house perhaps it goes.
yeah, and the breezeway actually is pretty
Flat.
shallow itself.
Okay, so
but-
maybe just the garage, if you'd have to really need them,
Okay,
because it is concealed by the, because it's concealed by the large tree, but the tree in street view and there shows it too, it shadows your solar panels,
Yeah,
the large tree does, so you go down the tree, the big oak tree or whatever.
okay,
it is.
the famous oak tree now.
Okay, so do you
No,
need
that's
them on the
further
garage?
down.
Do you need them on the garage? Solar panels? to
I
make it
think
good?
we do in order to make it efficient. I will get more clarification on that, but because when I was looking at just doing it on portico and the bottom, I just realized that the bottom half of the main building is hidden.
Pretty fun.
So, by the portico, because it's kind of blocks it. So, because we were trying to say, well, what if we just did the porch? And they said, no, it wouldn't be worth it. Like, okay, what if we just did now the, where they have them there on the, to the left of the main wing?
Yes.
I actually had told them I prefer it to be in front if it will fit, because that area is a shallower roof. You can definitely see it if you look at the front elevation further on. You can see it, but it's still not quite as obvious. And I know that I've heard people say, you know, a roof is not a beautiful thing anyway. What do you care if you have solar panels on it? I actually think the exception is the metal roof. The red metal roof, I think, is pretty attractive. So I don't like to, you know, cover it with the black solar panels, which in this case, I don't think are as attractive. But in our case, I think that we really like to not only for our own savings, but I feel like it would be responsible to get on
What
board.
about the back side of the house and that shallow roof? Okay.
Yeah, let me,
That should be that big, because that's kind of your main structure, you know?
I mean, and that's what, when we've had other applications for solar come in, the big thing is we want the applicant to have gone through what Mr. Colby's talking about, that where are the locations you can potentially place it, what makes the most, where is it being considered?
Correct. Now, like on the main part of the house where that shallow roof I just pointed to,
Mhm.
that could take a lot of square footage of solar panels off the other parts of the house. Maybe.
okay, so you're saying that
So-
rather than using the south,
Rather
garage.
than using it, or yeah, rather than put them on your garage,
Okay.
try to see put on the back side of that shallow roof area, and then the other shallow roof to the left of that. So it's basically everything's on the main part of the house. That maybe helps with your wiring and your expense.
yeah, the wiring is basically on the right side.
So Joe, you're saying you want to see it right here.
Well, actually go right there, yeah.
Or you want it right here?
Yeah,
Okay,
and then also just to the left of that, but nothing on the breezeway or the garage.
okay.
Just see what that does,
Okay,
because they're almost flat. It's like a.
And then be prepared to answer him if you have an answer.
okay, so how do you feel about the flatter area? How do you feel about the flatter area of the smaller porch?
Flatter area, small.
So if,
to the left,
Yeah, right there.
not on the front side. I feel
You really, even with that 30?
Not, I can
okay.
maybe stomach it, but I think, but I think the stuff in the
Make
back.
you ill.
Landscape architect is stomach.
Okay.
Shoot for the back. Well, because I'm looking at that wonderful garden, look at it, oh my God.
Aren't you gonna be looking at the plans?
No, we look it up. I was like, oh,
Always.
for
Samantha, or Samantha.
Just on it.
Oh, okay.
Because I look up on the magazine, the real estate.
Oh, okay.
Side, and there is a gigantic photo of
Yes,
from
it does
the
look
house.
striking when you see that.
See those
Mhm.
garage too.
Yeah.
From the open area, so visible.
Yes, oh, definitely is, yeah.
But just think I'm saving you money now because of all wiring.
Well, perhaps, if we still get sun from that. Yeah, I mean, they always give you that view where it's almost noon, because the tree there on the north lawn, the beech tree, would end up shading it for a good chunk of the morning. Like, so we'd have to.
Mr. Glenn?
There's also, there's a beech tree and then there's an old buckeye, which is pretty close to the other one there. So I'd have to ask them about the shading on that.
Well, keep in mind too that, you have shorter sun angles as opposed to longer angles in the winter, no leaves on the trees. So,
Even though this isn't in one of our historic districts, there's a reason why the applicant is here in front of us, is because they have a historic house that has historic easements on it. And I've read through the easements and they're fairly strict. I think it would be doing our job a disservice if we said it was okay for you to have visible modern elements visible in the house, not just from the street, but from the grounds walking around. You're going to lose a lot of what makes the house feel what it is, which is an older historic house. Now, granted, it wasn't built in 1790 and then it was done, but I mean, that's the nature. Things do evolve over time. But I think we're at the point that using modern materials and making modern changes to it would really bastardize it. I have no issue with the solar panels on the flat roof. But any of the other roofs, I think, would be visible from the ground and would ruin this. And I've read, in reading through the easements, I saw that you can't even build any sort of accessory structures, or very limited in the accessory structures what you could do. But I mean, I would rather if you could find a way to work within that easement to be able to provide some sort of solar farm on the ground rather than planted on the roof.
They did talk about that. I think that would be uglier than. Now, we do have a.
It may be uglier to you, but I think it'd be more respectful.
So there is a, I don't know if you can pull out, you had one that was like higher up. So, I think the other one that was a little further away. I don't know if you can tell, there's, no, you really can't see it with the trees. There's basically, some people put in a basketball court. It's basically a 30-foot by 30-foot concrete pad. And I was hoping that if we renegotiate, we consider that part of the footprint already if we built something on that. But that could also be considered that we're adding to the footprint because it's a bare concrete pad. So it's almost like it's like a ready-made foundation in a way. And I had thought if we did like a granny flat kind of thing and had solar on that would be another option too. It's visible from the front, but that would be a whole other project that we'd have to work in. But I don't love the idea. I think I would just not do solar at all rather than have it in the backyard there.
Well, I'll be honest, I just think solar's the wrong solution for your situation.
Well,
Geothermal would be a better for energy savings.
Geothermal would mean we'd have to get archaeologists to make sure we're not digging up like
you could
objects from.
you could do a vertical well, which is straight down, which is only a 5 by 5 foot area that would have to be disturbed, so that there are ways to consider that. I just think you're trying to fit something on here that doesn't belong, and I'm sorry, but I'd be hard pressed to vote in favor of putting visible modern elements on.
Are you talking about over the whole thing or just in the front?
On your house,
Anyway,
on the structure.
Okay.
I am more inclined to accept something on a 1940 structure, but I don't think that's going to do you any good because of the trees that are in the way.
Yeah.
You're even limited on cutting any tree that's more than 9 inches in diameter. down.
Well, I wouldn't cut a tree to do solar. That to me is counterproductive. But I guess when we first moved in, our last home was completely covered in trees. You know, it was lovely and shady, but when we moved here and I saw all the sun on the front, I was like, we really should take advantage of that and follow a solar, get some kind of solar energy, especially with, I know a lot of the county buildings are trying to create green energy. One of the things that we have done when we moved in is add $30,000 worth of insulation in the roof. But because of how the basement is structured and where the vents are, we can't seal the basement as well, which would give us a lot more efficiency. So we basically are in a house that's got tons of chinks and holes and mouse.
You're the steward of a historic
Yeah.
property.
So we're doing our
Kind
best
of
to
what
make
comes
it,
with it.
to make it as efficient as we can.
Mr. Zone?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably be in the minority, and I'm a little more permissive than some others are. I would agree partially and disagree partially with Mr. Kalinsky. It is a historic structure, and I do think that has to be respected. And I do think you need to take every effort to put these panels in a place where they can't be seen.
Okay.
But at the same time, I don't think the park authority told you to go away and not even consider coming to talk to us.
Yeah.
And so I would say there might be a reason for that. And so I would be inclined, after I was confident that you had looked into every possibility about where they could go, and then presented us with, what I would call least obtrusive, least visible presentation you could. I personally might be more inclined to be in favor of that, although I don't know that you're going to find a majority here.
Okay, so how does that work? Do you all end up voting?
Well, so as you can see, I think that's we're a board of experts of different backgrounds, and we're not monolithic.
Okay.
Each one of us, based on the way the easement works and the fact that the park authority has said that you should come to us for approval,
Okay.
we would vote on it. It's my
Okay.
understanding of the way the easement works is the park authority says, hey, we want ARB approval. So you would be seeking our approval for the project. So we would treat it similar to an application, but we would be citing the easement as the governing document and the park authority's request for us to weigh in on it. And we would take a vote, and we have a number of our membership, and if the motion passes, then we might recommend it. If it doesn't, it happens.
Yeah, and I'm the lawyer. I'm the board.
Okay.
I just qualify that every time. Not like easement. But I can be wrong about the motivations of the park authority. But the way I look at it as a lawyer is when someone comes to me for a recommendation, because they wouldn't come to me if it was impossible. So that's my perspective looking at it. I could be wrong. The park authority could be going, well, we brought it to you, but we don't want you to do anything. We don't want you to do it back of it. That's just my perspective.
I don't know, the guy at the park authority might, like you, I'm just saying, no, hold on to it. I can see David Brooks doing that.
Well, let me tell you, his first email was,
I don't know if you're on the ARB.
let me see what he said. I mean, he basically was saying, I think we can work this out, was more or less.
Well, could I suggest that you talk, the community has a strong, I know some of the people who do okay with that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
If you do Mary Lipsy,
Absolutely, yeah.
check with Mary, see what she thinks. It's
really?
for Sharon Bulba's pet project.
Oh, I know, yeah.
So maybe Sharon has an opinion.
And that is an important factor because
Okay.
we would, if we took something up for vote, we would ask for public comment during that. And
Okay.
obviously, if there were public groups that felt outspoken about it too. And it's interesting to see how much we change the board dynamically sometimes on certain topics. But I think Mr. Blumfield and Mr. Quincy gave very valid points about due diligence, about how you analyze this, and then alternative ways of trying to achieve energy efficiency that might be worth exploring.
Okay.
Yes, please explore the geothermal.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that that was doable.
It's a difficult.
And, yeah.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to read these.
It's in there.
It's
like a 7-page.
Go ahead, hold on, I've got David.
Just to clarify very quickly, Ms. Braceland applied last Monday morning, and I added her because we
Yes.
split
Yeah.
the meeting. We had 2 people drop, so
Yeah,
we're 5 weeks ahead of when she thought she would be
We
here.
are trying to be as
So-
similar about this as we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, a basic,
So you made reference earlier to us approving solar things. In my recollection, every one of those was on a new structure that was in a vicinity of Laurel Hill, really.
We've improved them in Hall Hills too.
But they're
Yeah.
not facing, but they're not facing the street. They're facing the back. So
It was, basically,
Yeah.
because you voted against it.
I voted against
Okay.
it.
You didn't like,
okay.
We've improved, I believe it's,
but 2 is the current date in the Hall Hills. 2, I'll have to look those up. I don't recall this.
but yes, in most cases, you're right. They have been on new structures in most cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A mid-century modern is different.
Definitely.
But
It's a lot of revival.
Well, and it's a matter of, when you get looking at the standards, it becomes a matter of philosophy because it's a question of, new materials in comparison to old. I'm always going to be able to differentiate what is new and old, but you're also right that the view of the historic property is an important factor too. And if to achieve what you're looking to do is just going to create a giant mass of black panels on the roof of this house, then Steve is right. We're not doing a service by the property.
Okay.
Hence why we're like, we need to know a lot more, but hey, we're able to hop in on a workshop. You've got all these questions. I think that gives you a
I
lot
mean,
more.
that's basically is what I'm trying to find out. I mean, he did say it. He said, I don't believe you'll have any concerns. I guess you misread that. But, yeah, I mean, I honestly wasn't sure what the take would be on that. And I also don't like the idea of them being very visible.
That's what color coordinate.
And that's why, I mean, basically we've been putting it off thinking, well, maybe one day they'll have these little silicone things that are red and you can just glue them on there and no one will see them. But because we did this work, we wanted to see if we could, jump in and get it.
It was
done
a
that
test, the one that came to the HOD. It's the one with the panel that we really just did not like.
But can I also just bring something up for the applicant? One of the things, if you are putting these structures onto your roof, you're going to have your roof structurally evaluated to make sure that this additional weight is not going to be detrimental.
Yes, and we had had that looked at, and that's the groups at Ipsen Solar did a lot of work.
Did you have a structural engineer look at it, or did you have these solar panel installers?
Well, we had the solar panel look at it. We also had the people that did the repairs for the portico, and that was part of what had to be done because that wasn't structurally sound at that point.
I'm kind of with Steve though. If there's an easement document, which I did not read, I mean, that's there for a reason. And I think that we are pretty full of ourselves if we are to go, oh, that doesn't count, we now are the new sheriff in town.
Well, the easement kind of makes us the sheriff. actually.
Yeah.
But Steve is right. It is written in a way that is very pro the house itself.
Yeah.
I think so when you take a look at it, it is.
And you get the weeds on it, part of the pond, it is very restrictive on the landscape.
Yes, it is
Well,
Which makes it such a beautiful property. I mean, it contributes to that.
accepted of everything around.
The landscaping is why it's got easement.
Right.
Well, that was the excuse. That's how they finally sold it. I think everybody wanted to keep the house.
Yes, the house is not considered historic according to the way the easement was written because it had been, I guess, it had so many additions on that. So it's actually considered a colonial revival style of the 30s rather than a 1790s home, which is interesting since it was a federal home and they made it look older by making it colonial.
That was the passion.
Exactly.
One might dare say, like, to reevaluate it so we can.
Exactly now, because it was in Britain or something like that. He was very prominent architect. So we could say it's the work of a master, that the renovation was the work of a master architect.
Yeah, I'm looking at the what the Sarah Petrov sent back about.
So what I'm hearing, though, I think you're getting a lot.
Okay.
We've got I think a lot of not mixed perspectives, but all concerns about is this the right fit?
Okay.
Are you choosing something that actually makes sense for property? And if you choose something that actually makes sense from an energy perspective, is it to the detriment of the property? What's the balancing act there? Because I would agree, my fellow board members, that's what we're here to uphold, is what
Okay.
is said in that easement. So that's why we got slated in that. So we'll look at those terms rather closely.
Okay, so, in the meantime, did you all need more information from me, or do I wait until the next meeting and present have that turned in?
Are you within a month of doing this?
I mean, we could. They could schedule it.
I think she'll get the energy alternatives like a geothermal over majority of it and maybe the flat panels on the flat part of the roof.
Okay, and see how little we can get away with.
See if that works. for you.
Ultimately, if you are going to come back, just like we said, the other applicants, now you're not building a new structure, but you are building something that requires drawings, actually shows what's going to be built. You're going to need to be actually able to tell us what the panels look like. You need to be able to explain the configuration, how it would connect to power, what that would look like. And as well, we've asked a lot of questions about, have you analyzed locations? Have you analyzed other alternatives? Because those are the questions. So, one, that's the nice thing about this being recording, you have all that feedback, but all of that will want to be answered, but also if it is an application, it will need to be a consolidated package that reflects the actual thing being constructed as well as the layout and that information. We need something that, I think we could share a few other solar packages we've looked at in the past.
Oh, okay, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Because they are not, we're not building a structure, but something is going to be built if you're going that way. So we would need that information. But I don't know if there's anything else. I'm just thinking what you all have mentioned.
I would think line of sight too.
Yeah, I think that,
Pictures from the street.
We
Well,
did two.
you can't see the house from the street. It's really, you just see,
So that's from Rayburn Road.
they're the boxwoods and the old trees pretty
That
much.
is from the driveway.
Yeah, you definitely can't see it.
It would help if you had pictures all around the house, all the facades of the house.
So,
We don't have any.
okay.
And you should be able to stand in your backyard or on your driveway.
Yeah, those are still, as she said, they're still on the pictures that were put up before we bought it or still up there.
well, even technically just take an iPhone doing the wide angle zoom
Yeah.
on it to get us to see all those sides, we can understand that better conceptually. That'll be helpful. From what I'm hearing though, we will want a really detailed description as to how you came to the solution you're proposing if you're coming in an application. Particularly from several members about, does this actually make practical sense given the easement you're operating?
Because I was thinking of it from when we had the open house and people coming to the front, but you want it from even standing within the yard?
Just all four sides, just to
Okay.
educate us.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, because I think we're trying to get an idea of where these panels could go and
Okay.
what it would look like from different places other than just the front of the house. So I think
Because if the determining factor is that you could see the house, then there's no reason to protect the house.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For the house, it gracefully offer the public tour, like the.
Yes,
So yes, and it's open
Right.
4 times a year potentially.
yes.
And curious, have you had public tours the past couple of years?
Oh, yes, every year.
Every year you do?
Well, except for COVID, and when we had to
Except-
restructure the hallways.
It's called
So,
called Oak Hill Days.
yeah, it's on September 30th, so look it up. It's
So it's coming up, you got one coming up?
in a couple.
Yeah, it's 30th, right?
September 30th,
I
yeah.
understand it's from smaller people.
Yes, they're hoping to cut costs by having a kind of every other year be a smaller fair. I'm not quite sure how it's smaller, so.
How many people go?
They thought that they had about, she said there was like 300 last year. That was a-
Small affair,
That was a
okay.
very big year.
One day.
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
people were in line to go through.
It's a big deal in that part of the county.
Which gets to all the more
To Mr. Kriteki's
point about
That's
making
why I
sure.
suspect it was shareable. She had to look very lips.
I think I would, with the least point about that, I think for me, knowing that is going to be really critical beyond the other answers you're going to
Okay.
ask for about the community thought or particularly those groups, because the ARB does not want to suddenly say, hey, we think we found a great solution, and then suddenly, how could the ARB improve this?
Right.
Okay.
Then they would get to Mr. Clinton's point, we're not being good stewards then.
Okay.
And I'll
Not doing our job, period.
Yeah, and for at
It'd
least.
be up to you, because you're the
I
one too.
I serve on the history commission.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the history commission's forever representative.
Okay, great.
So I've been married forever. I was on the history
So-
commission, but this was done.
I think, for the sake of time, I think for you, it's going to be deciding whether or not you have enough information you feel you're ready to come for an application.
Okay.
Or if you want to come back for another workshop.
Okay.
That's your prerogative. If someone wants to come to us for an approval, you could come back saying, here, I've analyzed this and I have some proposals and bring them in for a workshop. You could say, no, we've made a decision. This is what we want to seek for approval and bring it in. They would come up as a workshop, as a application item, then we would take a vote as well as seek public comment on it. And
Okay.
that
And
would,
how long does that process?
well, at the end of one of our meetings. So depending on.
Oh, so it would be whoever came to the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like
Yeah.
another 2 weeks for people to do.
Whether our meetings are publicly advertised, things like
Okay.
that. So, and that's why I think Ms. Murray's thought about seeking that input would be very
Okay.
helpful. There are plenty of applications, particularly in other parts of the county that have prominent properties where they get, hey, the homeowners association or this group has also reviewed it, provided their recommendations. So that's you as the applicant, that's your prerogative. If you want to come back for another workshop, got to hit you with a lot of questions. So if I were to suggest, it might, coming back with a lot of data, it might be helpful to come back for another workshop.
We could be more informal about it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we have to.
Oh, and pick an up-down vote. And then,
Otherwise we have to evaluate what you've put in front of us.
Okay.
Is your flat roof leaking now? That's all fixed?
No, that's been fixed. It was really just the porch, fortunately. It wasn't
Okay.
anything that got into the house. But I know that the previous owners had looked like they had to replace, I would say, probably 70% of the roof. Yeah, a lot of holes. It had been vacant for at least a year. So, yeah, they had to do, they did a lot of work. They wouldn't meet us. I think they didn't want to have to say how much time they put into the house.
It was still on the market when I
Yeah, so it
posted
was,
my meeting.
it was that 1 year the open house went through the entire house. Yeah.
Well, the Historical Society of Ground Golf, the Historical Society had a lovely time rooming for the building.
I imagine, yeah. Well, they thought that
We thought we should.
they thought that Sharon Bulliva would want to buy it when it was open, but she did not make a bid.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Okay,
We're
thank
happy
you
to
a lot
have
for
you.
your information.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I was officially planning tour.
Oh, the basement is fun.
Oh, the basement is fun.
It's
I
definitely,
they used to have one of those dry cleaning fluid fire extinguisher things. It's a glove full of the chemicals used to dry clean. There was one of those in that basement.
really, I didn't know that. I would always learn something new.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you. All right. We don't have any presentations. Go on to board and staff items. That would be a better comment.
I just wanted to say something, but not necessarily specifically about that application, but something that Steve had said earlier that I think is important about remaining consistent. Maybe this would be something to help with staff reports. I think we all have to think about that, not just on this case, but on all of them. Being consistent when we do things, whether it's the construction drawings or solar panels or whatever it is, guys, that's.
Which is why the staff reports would help us because we would have,
We
that would
totally
be
have that
hopefully some
background.
context we would have in those
Yeah.
because you're right, most of the time it is new construction.
And I think this one's pretty different because there's the easement associated with it and everything, so I think this one's different.
The nature of a staff report is whoever's writing the report is going to see whether or not the application is complete or not.
Right.
So
And then I'll remind you, Mr. Burns has been unhappy.
Yes, he does.
All around.
I think you are also channeling God, whether you can do it or not, across the land because
No, I just really feel strong that this thing has an easement. It feels, it's sitting in a suburban neighborhood with all sorts of sport courts, RVs and things like that, yet it still has maintained this aura of exclusivity because of its historic nature and its landscaping and its siting. As soon as you start, I've never seen solar panels on a house. It's just going to detract, and I think we're violating the spirit.
Well, it makes me think more and more that it's part of our guidelines. We should really be thinking about how we better speak to that because it is becoming an issue in Holland Hills because I think it's two now. We've seen it in Holland Hills. And if one was a workshop and it wasn't an application, I might be mistaken, but I know
we're seeing that, but Howland Hills also has all flat, essentially flat roofs. So you've got them sitting on flat roofs.
I mean, they have those angles that
They also could look at it. That's the problem. Well, I mean, I like the idea of solar. I just don't think it's a technology it's achieved. It's not affordability and its usefulness. I think it's still in its infancy. And then solar people have been putting on, could be torn out in a short order.
Yeah.
And then hopefully a better product goes in on top of it. It's just not attractive. Tesla was our best hope with the roof shades, but there are a lot of issues in that.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a point about the easements. That's another problem is any of these easements that exist in the county, which I don't even know full recollection of exists. They are all worded a little differently regarding what authority we do or don't have and what we're supposed to do. Because I do.
You know,
And sometimes they show up out of the blue and I've never heard of the property. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know we hooked in that easement. So this is not a problem for today, but
Right.
it definitely is, I think, it's always a challenge when they show up.
In this particular case, I am waiting to hear from the park authority if they are actually requesting, because that's the way the easement's worded. They have to request in writing that they come to the ARB. I don't know if it was a suggestion. So the park authority is supposed to approve the plans and then request that the ARB also approve them.
So they could actually approve
So we-
it, not.
You may not have purview if they don't actually require.
Well, we just created a record actually of our thoughts on it.
Yes, but it's good. It's good feedback for the design process.
here's my question. I don't know if we know the answer to this, because I do think it's unfair to ask us to do this, especially with easements like this, because I would feel like the county attorney might have an opinion about that. They normally weigh in on these types of things, so I don't know if they have to weigh in on it or not, which at that point, to the extent we're making recommendations, giving our thoughts, I think that's very useful. But if they're looking to us to kind of pass the buck to, I don't think that's very
This is one of the few times I've actually seen the park authority actually recommend that.
although it might not have actually.
Well, like the language exists in the easement to tell them, saying they can choose to send it to us. Most of the time, it's just you have to go to the ARB for approval on X, Y, Z items. And we've just been, even but we may forget about it. We've been saddled in somebody's easement as the person they have to come to, and then we have to reacquaint ourselves with the property and then read the easement and decide what our authorities are. And thankfully, we have Murray, who has a encyclopedic knowledge of most of these properties, and now has been assigned somebody.
I was encouraged that you were that familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think John Burns was one of the 12 items. Linda Blank and John Burns, I saw the house.
I just don't want to be anti-solar. I recognize that it is a burgeoning technology, but I also see the idea that
It's just oil and water in this case, in my mind.
I think the lawyer in me would say, I completely get what Steve's saying. I think if they get to a place where it's on the flat roof only, and that's enough, and we've already approved it elsewhere, if that's the case, and Helen Hills, if I'm remembering correctly, then I think we can, problem if we say no.
I think where I come from is though I see so many projects that say we have to demolish the building because we have to build something new and energy efficient, that I want to always try to find a way if we can make the existing building work. And so you see from what I see on my side, we have to build a brand new building. We need platinum. Like, well, how much embodied energy did you just destroy by erasing that building? And they're like, well, that doesn't matter. We don't count that. Well, okay, fine. So, and I agree, though, it needs to be done artfully. It isn't so much in most cases. So we did approve that one Tesla shingle. That was the one. So I'll be curious to see what that does look like.
If they were able to go through it, because Tesla is, we've tried it with Tesla roofs on buildings, and Tesla decides, they pick and choose the ones they want to put it on. It's not, are you willing to pay our costs? Do we want to do it on first or not? That's fascinating. Wow.
Well, Holland Hills, maybe that's where they got it. It's Holland.
The Tesla was, Liberty.
Was it Liberty? It was, right, it was Liberty. That was
townhouse.
Huge construction. Single-family house.
Yeah, it was, right.
Row house.
Okay. So sorry, let's be efficient. Are there any board and staff items that we need to take up? And I called you David a few times. I'm sorry, David. David.
Totally.
I do know, and that's why I just.
I have a question. So the woman beside you, are you a new hire? Because I don't think I ever.
Oh, this is Stephanie Newman. She was,
I'm filling in for
Yeah.
Megan.
Okay.
But she was a part-time planner, is now planner 2, supporting the History Commission. As a
Welcome.
last month.
Welcome, Brad.
Oh, thank you.
You're beautified.
We have to consider people so much.
I supported the ARB, I think, once
Yeah, she's been here before.
back in,
She's been here through the personnel crunch, so she's, I think, probably done
Yeah.
just about everything.
The only item that you have on here, I think, is just our scheduled discussion.
Yeah, I do have just a few things. The reminder, the October 12th will be in Lorton. That will be on the emails for everyone.
Please make that big.
Yes. Also, the reminder of the nominating committee schedule. You have to put forward a committee in October. The committee needs to meet in November and vote in December as a board.
Anyone want to be on the nominating committee? Well, someone's got to be on the nominating committee.
You have-
Not the nominating committee. You're going to get nominated to be an officer. So,
You do have
I
3
mean, I'll lay it out that plainly.
All right.
I mean, I'll be on the nominating committee. Joe just volunteered me. So, all right, so we've now established our nominating committee as Mr. Bliskey, Mr. Plumpy.
And you have another year left.
I apparently have another year. I don't wish to be so arrogant as to say, Joe, want me to run the deputy governor.
No, it's a question of who they actually do it.
Well, that's why I wanted to warn them, because I'll be on the nominating committee.
Then you won't nominate yourself.
Well, you can't do that. That's against the rules of the nominating committee. I haven't
You're
nominated
going
Joe.
to take care of Chris Kardashian.
And
Okay, we
then
solved that problem.
we need to revisit the discussion before I bring a budget forward of the, I guess we'll start with the fun one. If everyone is in support of adding the technology one-time expense.
Yeah, the 60,000 one above the tablets.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion from us on that?
I do not think so. I think if I have buy-in, we can put it in the budget request and then you'll approve that next month. And then the not so fun one is the discussion of the second standing meeting. I did give you the wrong quote. That would be, you don't meet in August, that'd be 11 months of this recording secretary of $515, which is $5,665. So just to speak to why we think this could be efficient, Denise and I met earlier today, and we don't really need to decide this, but the potential could be having a regular meeting bi-weekly. That is what some similar jurisdictions do in Virginia, with agenda, consent, and workshop items on a bi-weekly basis, as long as we have quorum, which we're hoping those spots will be filled before the end of the year. Or doing what has happened this year, which is the action item meeting on the scheduled day and the rollover workshop. Just from a staff perspective, if we're trying to guide most applicants through the workshop process and have staff reports, we need to have enough time for them to be heard before the board and get feedback to get through the application process. And if we're having to keep hunting people from month to month, the workshop is not a requirement. That's a suggestion on our part. So our thought is that having a standing second meeting, it's easier to cancel if we have a lighter month. I do have
The idea being that if the applications came in, I could work Daniel and say, but we only had 3 applications come in.
Right.
We have 2 workshops, let's just make it 1 meeting this month and push them all to the Thursday meeting. Whereas the other scenario, we have 6 applications, 4 workshops, we maintain 2 meetings.
Yes.
Thursday's tougher for me.
I think I'm more in favor of doing what we did now on Thursday.
Thursday, Monday? Yeah, I would be.
Get out of your hair, quicker.
Yeah, I like
Okay.
that.
I just want to have a discussion before it, because that is an expense that we have been told we need to include and account for. If we're going, we've already had 3 meetings this year. There's potential we could have another 1 or 2 that are split. Just because of the trend, I have the counts for how many meetings we've had. The shortest month this year had 5 agenda items. A year and a half ago, most months were averaging 4. So you've had 3 months this year that are already 12.
Yeah, that'll see exploded.
Yeah, because we brought on 500 new properties. So just, we want to,
Even analyzing the building permits that are being done on those before we took it on the map, track to this.
Right.
Apparently, we have an explosion of building.
So our thought of the pro of having two meetings that are the same in terms of agenda consent and workshop is once we're in the flow of staff reports, we're doing those on a rolling basis. We're not having staff crunching them in at the 2-week timeline. The timelines would also have to be adjusted on our ends for submission deadlines. So as long as I have support to put that in the budget request, we can figure out the details later because the calendar is not set until December. So we need to request the money to, because the money right now is coming from like your training budget, other things that are not accounting for additional meetings.
So you're asking, are we okay with at least at the time budgeting for 2 meetings?
Yes.
The solution for what those 2 meetings would look like, we can sort.
Yes. That doesn't have to be decided. We just need.
Michelle, that's not your problem. So,
So you think
I
next year's budget?
I think you should budget for 2
I
meetings.
do.
Because the budget office can tell you no. And they'll tell you no if we're not, if you're having it, if we're having them to, we have this is a very strong case. We put it in the record. And if we get turned down, we can go complain.
Or we run out of budget, can't hold the meeting.
But you've got enough accumulated funds that you can fund for the rest of fiscal 24, 2 meetings.
We just don't want to be using the money that's not allocated for that. That's the thought on the division management side is that they want
There's a lot of accumulated funds that were unspent from previous years.
right.
And so I don't see how you could say that they were training necessary. I also know budget costs.
See our new treasurer just presented. I think so. Nominating committee.
But
No,
But,
I'm
but
budget
you don't get what you don't ask for. So
Right.
if we ask for a larger budget, they grant it to us, that's what.
That's why,
Yeah.
just like the technology expense as one of the 3 regulatory boards, and your purview has expanded in the past 2 years. So the budget needs to reflect that. That's our thought. So if we have support, we can present that.
And it would still, those 5 hours extra properties.
I would say it would require us to think about as well, the flexibility of allowing folks to participate. I think our rules were set for a set of 11 or 12 meetings. I think we might be willing to accommodate for 10. Like we still
We would have to revisit with the county attorney because
Yeah.
the clarification we have is that it's only allowed based on the bylaws for member by member case, not an entire meeting being remote.
Well, there was a certain limit to the number of times a member could use it a year or 2.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is if we're going to have twice as many meetings, I would like the members to have twice as many opportunities to say, Chris, I need
Right.
to participate
There's-
remotely.
Also, we
yeah.
talked internally, there's the potential of if you have a full board of 11 members, figuring out some system amongst yourselves to alternate workshop. So everyone's not doing 2 every month. So there's a lot of, there's some workarounds as long as everyone's still
Are there
present
any
represented.
objections to seeking that? Okay. It seems like we're fine with you requesting it. We can sort out the intricacies if it is approved.
Okay. And then the last thing is different. It's related to another easement. Drover's Rest, the easement was finalized with the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust. And they have at least one potential buyer we know of who is very active in asking questions about ARB input. The way that easement is written, the holder of the easement decides when the property owner comes to the ARB. The discussion item is that the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust is open to setting a site visit where you can visit the property if that's an interest of the board. Not with the current property owner, but just to be familiar and visit the site. So that is something that we can coordinate if there is interest. We would have to advertise it as a public meeting, but there's not much attendance. So I think that we would be fine.
Where's the property located at?
It's in McLean.
I was going to say I'd be definitely interested. I'd be interested.
Yeah.
Because
It was a project for River History Commission members from the area. She very much wanted to get a county going for that, in particular for that property. But there just wasn't the will and the funds. And so.
It has several extant outbuildings and it's a large landscape property. So
I think
Perhaps what you could do, Daniel, is query us, there is
via email.
enough folks that would want to set up this living room. Well, no, if there's not folks that will do it now.
I think it's just do a quick 5-minute presentation in the next couple of meetings, whatever. Say, this is what it is, and you guys just look at it.
Okay, yeah.
So so we know where it is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we getting to the same point that Mr. Kalinsky brought up, it's helpful to know these properties we have these on.
Right.
I keep getting thrown on the fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is all for me.
All right. Unless there's any new business, other than congratulations, Michelle. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Every time I dig a shovel in the ground, I think. I said every time I dig a hole in the ground, I will think of you.
Yeah, that. All right, I'll move to adjourn. Motion's always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carry it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It's not